From creepy hotels where the guest never left to forgotten asylums with broken pasts. Come join us as we explore some of the darker stories surrounding the United States. Put on your nightlight because we are about to dive into the creepy side of America.
Welcome to the creepy side of America. My name is Dan Kozlowski. I just want to remind everyone joining us this evening, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, or follow the creepy side of America on whichever podcast platform that you're listening to us on. We have a very interesting episode planned for you this evening. Joining us tonight is Donnie Biggins from the Golden Dagger, located in Chicago, Illinois. Donnie has a couple interesting stories to share with us, and also the creepy past of his property. Donnie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. When we were researching locations across America, I came across your property. It seems like it had a very strange and interesting past.
Yes, that's for sure.
What are some of the interesting things that happened there in the past?
Well, the building itself is from 1894. It's one of the oldest standing buildings in Chicago. It started as a speakeasy bar in the early 1900s, and it's located in Lincoln Park on Halsted Street. Adjacent to Halsted is another street called Lincoln Avenue, and that's where the Biograph Theater was. And so the Biograph Theater was the home for the Northside Irish Gang at the time, John Dillinger's gang. Our building, where Golden Dagger is, was a speakeasy bar on the first floor, and on the second and third floor were brothels. And so there was a underground tunnel that went from the Biograph Theater under Halsted and into our building.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so these gang members from the time would have a safe escape out of the Biograph and then into this building. And that's like the origin of a lot of the history in the space.
Mm-hmm.
And after the speakeasy went away, it was purchased by a family that had an emporium on the first floor. And that business was home for the Chicago chapter for the Golden Dawn, which was Aleister Crowley's occult. The occult used to meet on this property back, I would say, roughly around 1940s to the 1970s.
So that was right after the speakeasy that took over.
Yes. And so the Golden Dawn used to host their occult meetings. So when they would have meetings in Chicago, this would be their location. And, you know, stories and folklore have passed on to me that is where there were animal sacrifices being done on the property. There was a supposed human sacrifice that took place on the property. And all these things would happen in the basement, which they tagged the name the Temple of the Moon. And so the Temple of the Moon also was, how would I phrase it? It was basically they would meet in the Temple of the Moon, and on the floor of the basement, which is still present today, is a pentagram. And so that was where they would gather around the pentagram on the floor. And, you know, supposedly this is where the human sacrifice took place.
That is crazy to think about.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of like ins and outs of different types of stories too associated with all of these things.
So now, before we go any farther, one question that popped into my mind: do you still have access to any of the tunnels?
No.
So they've been blocked up.
Yeah, and there's no like visible proof of that from the basement. You can't
Right.
really see any of that. You know, street levels have changed and streets and everything. So
sure. Yeah, it was just one question that popped into my head when you were talking about the tunnels in the basement.
Yeah, but the in the building itself, so when you go up to the second floor, which are apartments, and the third floor, which are apartments, in their stairwells, they still have all the old doors. So for the brothel, there's 4 doors that can enter into each apartment. 3 of those doors are painted shut, but they're still, in place
right.
from the original.
That's pretty neat.
Set. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, with all this happening, and you saying, especially having a pentagram still on the floor in the basement, have you experienced anything there?
I have no like personal visual experiences of ghosts, but I did work I've been working in this building since 2009, and a coworker of mine who was working as a door staff went down to the basement one night, saw a white orb in the stairwell, and immediately sat down, and he described it as feeling paralyzed in his chair, and he's remained in the basement for almost 3 hours. He felt like he couldn't get up.
Wow.
And just was like overwhelmed with this spirit. And that staff member, he quit.
I don't blame him, to be honest. Yeah, especially if I couldn't leave the basement. But geez, I don't know. I couldn't even imagine something like that happening to me. Have you heard a lot of stories over the years throughout your crew you've been working with? And even, like you said, there was apartments upstairs. Do you know if they experienced anything?
So I've heard different stories. I have one personal recollection of a woman that grew up on the second floor. So she was a child at the time when El Saborum was the name of the store, when El Saborum was there on location. And
so that was a store on the first floor?
Yes.
Okay.
And she told me about basically this family's son. He believed that he had a spiritual connection and was the son of God. And he had, he kind of became this leader within the Golden Dawn in Chicago. And she described it as basically his employees, or the people that worked with him. They would come and like take out the recycling and the garbage, and they would all wear hooded robes, and it was just always a weird scene to her.
Like something you would see in the movies.
Up. Yeah, totally. And, it was like kind of their uniform on the property that when they were there to work.
I guess that's what happens when you're a member of something like that.
Yeah.
Any other experiences that you remember or hear from over the years that sort of stuck in your mind?
Well, so the name Golden Dagger, we don't have a Golden Dagger. The golden comes from the Golden Dawn.
Right, the name of the group.
The dagger was a relic that was found buried in the basement in a boarded up window well. And this was something that I inherited when I purchased my business in 2016. And so the dagger was always something that people that have been following this story over the decades, they would always come in and ask if they could see the dagger. And so we would always take it out and bring it upstairs and show everybody the dagger. And they would always claim that, they have some type of, they were feeling something anytime they were in its presence.
Right. Some kind of bad, you would say, almost like like you said, like a feeling you would have.
Yeah. And so, I like to believe that dagger was potentially a sacrificial dagger that would be used in these previous sacrifices that were being performed.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, because you said it was found in the basement.
Why would you bury it? Why would you hide it? And so now that dagger we have like in a framed trophy case up above the bar, so it's on display for everyone to see when they come into the venue.
Well, that's kind of cool, especially that you found it there on the property, and that you have this story that you're not positive, but you're pretty sure what it might have been used for.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
And so my connection to the dagger, I have a few things to share about that. So the previous owner that was my boss, he and I have always had strange days together. And a few years ago, it was, I think, 2017, he called me out of the blue. I hadn't spoken to him since I had purchased the business from him. And he called me out of the blue and just basically was asking me like what I was up to, what I was doing. And the reason why he was calling me was because he was driving and was thinking about the property and about the dagger, and he said he described like an overwhelming feeling of anxiety and emotion come through him, and he had to pull over and like collect himself. And then he called me to ask me what I was doing. And when he asked me that, I was coming out of my friend's tattoo parlor, in which I had just gotten the dagger tattooed onto my forearm.
Wow. That's a pretty creepy story. Yeah. Wow, the same exact. You don't. Whew.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder. There must be something more to it.
Most definitely, and a little bit more about the dagger. But so we actually had a building fire in 2021, and you already know that we found the dagger in a window well.
Right.
And the fire was started inside of a boarded up window well in the building that was, it was on the south end of the building, which is part of another property that I never venture over to because it's private property. And on the outside of the building, it was old, boarded up, an old window. And on the inside of the bar, it was just a wall with shelving. You would never know there was a window there. And this fire started, it was the day after Thanksgiving. And what I've been told by the fire department was that they think it was a cigarette that slowly burned over time inside of this old wood. Like somebody placed it on the outside of the building, and then the building slowly caught fire. But the weird part about that for me was that the actual origin of the fire, where all the black smoke and char was up in the top corner of the window well, which is unreachable. It's like 12 feet off the ground. And it's just a very strange location for a fire to actually start. There's no electrical there. There's nothing there that could have started it. And when the fire department was putting out the fire, they're in there with all the water and the hoses and spraying everything down. And, they wrecked all the shelving and all my records. And the only thing that was left standing on the wall was the dagger inside of the trophy case that is hanging on a picture hanger on the wall.
Wow.
And that was the one thing that was able to not get knocked down while they put out the fire.
And that was right in that fire area there where they...
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So
wow, a lot of strange coincidences, occurrences with that dagger, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Now, by chance, was that window the window the dagger was found?
No, this window was on the first floor.
Okay.
The dagger was found in the basement.
But still, a lot of weird coincidences for sure.
Yes.
Any other stories that sort of stuck with you or experiences that you would like to share with us?
No, that's kind of, those are my own personal stories. Right. I do feel punished anytime I go out of town or I leave for a long period of time. Things always break or something goes wrong. And to me, I always just say, well, that's the ghost giving me
maybe they like you around
for leaving her.
Now, you said this is a music venue now, the Golden Dagger. Tell us a little bit about the business located there at the property now.
Sure. So it's a small venue. We hold about 100 people. My background is I'm a singer-songwriter and a concert promoter. So I book live music 7 nights a week there. We host touring bands. We host a lot of Chicago music, and it's kind of the first place you ever play in Chicago. If you're coming on tour or you're a new group just getting started, it's often, due to the size and it's a community space is how I like to word it.
It sounds like a nice
very
spot.
Active.
Yep. So if anyone wanted any more information, or maybe they wanted to come visit the Golden Dagger, where would they find you? Do you have a website, Facebook page?
Yeah, we're online at www.goldendagger.com, and all of our social media handles are at Golden Dagger Chi, CHI is the way to find us.
Maybe someone will be interested in stopping by, checking out your venue, and maybe looking at the Get Dagger themselves.
Please do.
I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight, Donnie. You had some very good, interesting experiences, that's for sure.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on The Creepy Side of America. Please remember to follow The Creepy Side of America on Facebook. That is the best way to get the latest show information. Until next time, enjoy The Creepy Side of America.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Creepy Side of America. If you have any ideas or topic suggestions for an upcoming episode, send them to ghost@wnep.com. We're dying to hear from you.